According to Isis, each realm of reality has a ruler. There's a creator in heaven, the sun in the ether being the purest form of air. There is the moon in the air, that is the lower air which we breathe. And then there is the king on earth. The lower levels of air are those closest to earth, and that's where most souls abide. In theory, our world system is a meritocracy because our soul quality, although initially predetermined, is also determined by our practice. So the more that we fulfill our function, the more that we do what we're supposed to do in this life, the purer we become. Welcome back, everybody. I've put up a video with Neil recently on the Kosmou, which is a fantastic hermetic tractate only preserved in Stobaeus and the Stobaean Hermetica, hence SH. And in this video, I want to continue introducing you to the other tractates that were once part, I think, of the Kosmou. And these tractates are 24 to 26 in the Stobaean Hermetica. And you can find all of these translated in my book, Hermetica 2. And hopefully this introduction will whet your appetite for going further. So if you've listened to what we've already posted with Neil, we talked about SH23, which is the Hermetic creation story. And this is part of a dialogue of Isis to her son Horus. And the next topic that Horus gets interested in and asks his mother Isis about is specifically royal souls, that is, the souls of kings and rulers. And a lot of this goes back to ancient Egyptian mythology and how they thought that politics was designed. So I'll just give you a warning here that absolutely none of this is democratic, but it's still important, I think, to learn the basic mentality of many people in the ancient world. Some of this mentality still surviving into our world, but I think knowing its origins will help us even be able to further understand our own time. So, according to Isis, each realm of reality has a ruler. There's a creator in heaven, the sun in the ether being the purest form of air. There is the moon in the air, that is the lower air which we breathe. And then there is the king on earth. So it's very important. Monarchy is very important for ancient Egypt, again, in the tradition of the pharaohs. And it is assumed that the pharaoh or the king has a higher soul that is more closely assimilated with God and originally came from the highest level of the air. And the king, therefore, is called the lowest of gods and the highest of humans. The king bridges ontologically and overlaps those two domains and those two species, as it were. And this is apparently how a late ancient Egyptian would think of something like the emperor. Noble people, though, also have higher souls from higher realms because there are many, many, many different grades and shades of soul that live in many different grades and shades of the air. Now, one of the interesting things about this treatise is its ethnocentric focus, that Egypt is coded as the central area of the world, which to a Greco-Roman author sort of made sense because looking up there's Europe and down there's Africa. To the east there's India and to the west there was Spain, and that was their world. So Egypt looked very central to someone in Egypt, and native Egyptians boasted that they had the most temperate climate. And in this particular tractate, the author imagines, as it were, a human being situated upside down, and the heart of this human being lies over Egypt. And it's the heart, according to ancient Egyptian tradition, that is the center for intelligence, not the brain. So that is why the Egyptian climate, according to this treatise, best fosters intelligence. It is, in part, due to the air that they breathed. If we go to the next tractate, 25, this one talks more about souls after death, what happens after our sleeves or husks are shorn off. Souls released from bodies, says Isis, go to one of 60 levels in the air. So in the end, I guess we're all pilots and astronauts. Basically, the higher you go, the purer the air becomes in ancient Greek cosmology, or in ancient Egyptian cosmology, I should say. In the this translucent air, as I said before, is ether, or what the ancients called ether, which has come into English as ether. And up until the 19th century, there were still people who believed in ether. Who knows? Maybe people still believe in ether. I mean, if they can believe in a flat Earth, why not ether, right? But the lower levels of air are those closest to Earth, and that's where most souls abide. So this is also a perfect theory for ghost stories, by the way. In Tractate 26, we learn more about reincarnation, and this was hugely important for Hermetic authors. In theory, our world system is a meritocracy because our soul quality, although initially predetermined, is also determined by our practice. So the more that we fulfill our function, the more that we do what we're supposed to do in this life, the purer we become. And because this world is like a great gymnasium in which we are exercising for virtue, there is a group of middle managers, rulers, called memory and experience, who ensure that souls are matched up with the right kinds of bodies, because otherwise it would just be absolute chaos. I mean, thousands of us are dying every minute, and thousands of us are being born. And the ones who manage the system have a lot of work to do. Now, the middle managers also feed souls into animal bodies as well. And this is interesting. We don't know if all animals have what were human souls, but apparently a lot of them do. And all humans and human occupations are said to fit a natural hierarchy depending on the quality of soul. And so there are certain occupations that are really valued by the Hermetic author, and these occupations are filled by people who have higher souls. So this is not only the philosopher, but interestingly, the root cutter and the priest who has a higher soul. And among these occupations, there are also those who rule in those occupations, who are the best at what they do. We also learn from this tractate that the soul is surrounded by a vapor, which is exuded by the body's mix of four elements. So we're long before the periodic table. These late antique Egyptians are using the basically Greek theory that there are four basic elements of which all the cosmos, the material cosmos, is made: earth, air, fire, and water. All of our bodies are a peculiar mix of these four elements, and these four elements emit a vapor that comes off of our bodies and wraps around our soul. And it's this vapor that basically controls our mood, our character, and our health. So this is, not your traditional Greek theory of Plato's harsher division between body and soul. No, body and soul are ultimately made of the same substance, of a different degree of purity, and the vapor coming off the body is itself a sheath of the soul. So body and soul are always working together and are interconnected at various points. This is the great modification of Egyptian anthropology on Greek anthropology. So, in this theory of health, the substance of soul doesn't change, but its quality is modified by your elemental vapor that surrounds it like an envelope. If you have fluctuations in the vapor, these can cause illness, and it's keeping the elements in balance that produce health. And health of body is ultimately health of mind. Now, SH27, which is said to become from the discourse of Isis to her son Horus, is simply a single sentence that Stobaeus quoted out of context, and we don't know where it comes from. But it is a refutation recognized, O greatest of kings, drives the one refuted to desire things formerly unknown. For those of you wanting to read the Kori Kosmou, that is this discourse or set of discourses of Isis to Horus, again, check out Hermetica 2. I have it from the publisher that a paperback is coming out of this book. And it is really important to, when you're reading the Hermetica, to read all of it. And so if you're just familiar with the Corpus Hermeticum, that is those first 17 treatises that were organized in the Byzantine period, you're not getting the full view of the Hermetica. So I translate the Stobaean Hermetica as well as new Hermetic fragments from Oxford and Vienna, and I give you the full reception history, including the Christian reception history of the Hermetica all the way up until the late medieval period. So go check that out and leave a comment, leave a question. Really appreciate everybody's time and interest. And I hope that all of you will let me know if this is the kind of material you like, and so I can post more of it. Until we meet again, I wish everybody a very excellent day. Take care.